Good morning, Ohio. It's James Lewis of This Dream House, a show that's all about the house. With us today is Marcus Thompson II. Marcus, thank you for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Marcus is the author of Kevin Durant's Relentless Pursuit to be the Greatest. So how's he doing on his pursuit?
So far, so good, right?
Exactly.
He's got two Finals MVPs, two championships on his way to a third. I think it's all right.
Oh, definitely. So how does your new book compare to your other book, Golden, the Miraculous Rise of Steph Curry?
They're probably about as different as those two guys are, right? What Steph is like, the Mr. Ideal, like everything has gone pretty well in his life, and he was a complete underdog who had to overcome all these odds. KD is like the phenom who's had so much stuff go wrong in his life, and he had to overcome using his incredible talent. So it's almost like two completely different stories with the same kind of undertones of overcoming and believing in yourself and reaching heights that you probably never imagined.
Definitely. I mean, obviously both of them, like you said, Steph comes from a different background than Kevin completely, but yet they both have a lot of obstacles and a lot of struggles. So it's not like fans, how they think that, oh yeah, shoot, they just wake up and they become NBA players. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into that.
No question. Especially like the more talent you have, like the more expectations, so the more like pressure and weight, right? The harder to fall. I mean, Kevin Durant's been 6'9" since he was about 14, 15 years old. So, like, he's walking in the gym and he can shoot and he's tall. Like, he's been expected to be an NBA star since his teenage years, right? Like, so he's like a high schooler, and they're like, yeah, this dude's going to the NBA. Steph was different. Steph was like, when he got to the NBA, they were like, man, maybe he could be a sixth man. So I feel like Kevin Durant, it's actually kind of remarkable what he has survived and how he's managed to maximize his potential, because he's endured quite some hardships, and he still managed to come out of it a great basketball player, a great like example and community person, and a pretty good guy. Even though we get on him for being sensitive and a little cantankerous with the media, he's still a pretty good guy who's made a pretty nice life for himself.
Speaking of that, what was his early life like?
So his dad left the family when he was 1 and kind of like put him on the trajectory to struggle, right? His mom, single mom with 2 kids, trying to make ends meet. They spent a lot. They lived with their grandmother, because she had the safety net of her grandmother that wasn't far away. But it was rough. They didn't have much money. They lived in a rough part of PG County, so this was like during the crack epidemic. So they've got like drugs and violence in the neighborhood, and just like the very common ills, he's had some like just debilitating deaths in his life, that the kind that just crush you, like the people who were really close to him and people who mattered a lot to him just suddenly died, and like he had to deal with those type of traumas. So it was rough, and basketball was his salvation. I mean, he spent so much time in the gym, working, just trying to escape, trying to like block out like the hurt and the hunger and the lostness and the instability. But basketball was like where he could control, and because of that, man, he developed some incredible skills that are on display right now for the world to see.
Why was his game considered so unusual compared to others?
Because he's 7 foot, and he's supposed to be in the low post doing hook shots and turnaround jumpers, right? But he's like if you took Steph Curry and just stretched him out. I remember like talking with players all the time, especially when Kevin Durant was at Oklahoma City, and the one thing that players will always say, but they were always like, but he's 7 feet. Like, you could deal with guards, right? Some guards are great. Some guards are tough. But he's a guard that's 7 feet. And it's just an anomaly. Like, especially he was born in 88, grew up in the early 90s. That's That's rough and tumble 90s basketball, right? Like you get your butt on the block and you bang and you know inside out. And here was this guy who was 6'9", 6'10", 11 doing crossovers and hitting step back threes. It was just so abnormal that you knew he was destined to be something. He just had to be.
Oh, definitely. And you're right. Back then there actually was a low post, but is there really one anymore?
The low post is like the free throw line, right? Like,
yeah,
everything is spread out. It's crazy when you see, like, remember Larry Johnson used to like spend 20 seconds in the paint,
mm-hmm.
like just take it like those days just don't happen anymore. And when they do, it's a guard posting, right? It's some kind of inverted offense, like some Don Nelson inspired offense where you got a bigger guard and he'll post up, right? Like those days of camping out in the lane and trying to go for the high efficient shot, you know, the high percentage shot, those feel like they're dead. Like people, it's still weird for me to see a transition 3-pointer. Am I old? Am I just being old school?
No, I agree
like
with you. It is kind of an odd thing. Yeah, because
you go to the rim. What are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah. They don't even try to go to the rim. They just, I'm going to stop and pop the three. Yeah, kind of. We discussed it last week on our show. We had the author of Sprawl Ball. And it just looking at both Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and LeBron James's shot selections, how they've changed over the last years, it is just so remarkable. And the crazy thing is, they say it's even going to be even more 3-pointers because right now there's some teams about 50%, but they're going to say it might even be 70% at some point.
No question. You're looking at a team like Houston, right? And they shoot 53s a game. And I remember, you know, this was the fourth time the Warriors have played Houston in the playoffs, and you know, coming up, the thinking was you can't win a playoff game shooting 53s. Like you just can't do it. Like you live and die with the three. It doesn't work in the playoffs, and it really hasn't worked for them, right? But we're getting there, right? It's close, and if everybody's taking 33s, what's 50 really? So I do feel like it's going that way. It's just the kids are coming up. They just know how to shoot. Look, Trae Young walks into the league shooting 30-foot threes. I mean, you don't get a worse shot. When I was coming up, you had, that earns you a spot on the bench, whether you made it or not. And now rookies are taking shots from the logo in the NBA. Like the cat is out the bag. Pandora's box is open.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that's my first thought is, you know, even if you make it, you shouldn't be taking it. You get right down there on the bench. But yeah, no, the coach is encouraging them to do that nowadays.
It's all about, like, you know, the data, right? You know, you take enough threes. If you just have to make fewer in order to equal the number of points. We've seen Steph Curry literally change the game with this. And that's what makes Kevin Durant so unique, is because he could play either way. Like, he was raised on 90s basketball, so his favorite shot is the mid-range. He loves that 12 to 15, 18-foot pull-up. Like, that's his favorite shot in the world. But he can shoot the three, right? And he can get to the rim. And that's why he's so dynamic. Steph has stretched the court, like, so far out. Like, defenders are way out 30 feet, and he kind of needed to. He's 6'3". He's 190 pounds, dripping wet with rocks in his pocket. He had to come up with something, right?
Exactly.
KD, like, how do you want it? What you want to do? You want me to get to the free throw line? You want this mid-range all day, or do you want me to shoot threes? Like, he's a unicorn, and he was a unicorn in the previous generation of basketball. He's a unicorn in the current one, which is kind of a testament to how unique he is.
Oh, definitely. So why does Kevin Durant go from young, humble star to polarizing figure?
You know, this is so interesting, right? Because what I remember of KD was that dude could score. His mother was the MVP, and he donated $1 million to tornado relief in Oklahoma. That's what we knew. Like, this dude is different. He's such a good kid. And then he made the switch. So first off, I think the one thing that happened was he became more relevant and more visible and more like his exposure was higher than it ever been. Like, he was relatively hiding in Oklahoma City. Like, we knew he was there, but we weren't examining him closely. But once he made that move, he became this transcendent historical figure, which brought on all kinds of pressure and scrutiny and criticism. And I do think, like, it hurt him, it burned him, it frustrated him, and eventually it hardened him. And it made him say, I've been trying to please people for 9 years, like, no more. And he's kind of, like, ripped off the mask and the veil, right? And he's like, look, this is who I am. There was one moment, right, he gets these shoes and he wins a championship. He finally does it, takes all the criticism, he wins the championship, and he releases these shoes. Inside the shoe on the sole, he writes all of the slights that were, that he was called. He's a coward, right? Ring chaser. And so somebody commented and said, man, why are you listening to these people? Like, you just won a championship. You're the finals MVP. Why are you listening to them people? Not only did he respond, right, which doesn't happen. They just don't respond. But his response was, man, I'm just a guy like you. Like, I've got acne. I drink beer. I get scared. Like, I'm a regular guy. And it was so profound because this dude is a superstar. He's a mogul. And he just refused to make himself more than just a guy. And he is determined to be a regular guy with all the rights and all the flaws and all the, the strengths and weaknesses that comes with. And if we don't like it, that's on us.
Exactly. He deserves the right to be able to express himself just like anybody else does.
Right? I mean, we just are used to our superstars behaving a certain way. And you know what? I'm sure there are PR people who are like, yeah, he shouldn't be doing this, right? Like, he shouldn't be arguing on Twitter. He shouldn't be snapping at the media. But in his mind, if you come at me, I reserve the right to come at you, and I'm not relinquishing it because I make $30 million. Like, nah, I'm still a guy, and I'm still going to fire back at you. And if you got a problem with that, that's something wrong with you. So it's probably not the way, the brands would do it, but it's actually authentic, which I kind of have to respect.
So how bad is his injury?
It's significant enough that I don't think he'll play in this series unless Portland wins a game. And it really depends on which game. I don't expect them to play in Game 2. And if the Warriors go up 2-0, I don't expect them to play in Game 3. So at that point, if they're up 3-0, then that's it. If it's 2-1, maybe you bring them back. They're kind of trying to juggle this thing where, like, his calf still hurts and he hasn't been on the court, so you want to rest him. But also, presuming they will advance, you will need him for the finals. And it's probably best to have him going into the finals with a game or two under his belt and some rhythm. So it's going to be tricky to see. Maybe he comes back Game 3 or 4. Do they rest him? If they finish too early, they might have a week off, and that'll be like 2 or 3 weeks off for him. And now he enters the finals rusty. So they kind of got to play this like right, but I don't expect him to play until Portland gets one. And then maybe if it's 3-0, he plays in Game 4 just so he can break a sweat and get kind of his rhythm back.
Obviously, he's got the playoffs and the finals to go through right now. But after that, what does the future hold for him, you think?
He gets the benefit of being the number one free agent, and he's going to have to make another, like, NBA changing decision, right? He already made one that kind of shifted the balance. Many would say ruined the league, that created a dynasty, that ushered in this era of, like, historic greatness. Now, whatever his next decision is, it's probably going to do the same thing, right? It's at minimum going to keep a dynasty going or break up a dynasty. And maybe it creates another one. It shifts the balance of power. But I think he's probably got plans of what he wants to do. He's got the options laid out and knows the one he wants. I still don't think he's going to know until it's actually time to make the decision because, look, the Warriors have a great situation for him. They pay him the most money. They got a new arena opening. He's got guys who he fits with very well. Whoever sits across from him, whether it's New York or the Clippers or Brooklyn, they're gonna have to make a nice pitch to look better than what he's got with the Warriors. And I know it sounds good on paper now, but pulling that trigger, I imagine, is going to be a little tougher than people think it will be.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's kind of hard to give up when you have everything you could possibly want in Golden State. I mean, there's no downfall to be in there. It's not you're not giving up money, you're not giving up winning, you're not giving up anything to be where you want to be. So that I agree with you. That'll be a tough pitch for any team to be able to say, "Hey, you need to come here and be our savior," when he already is in Golden State.
And that, you know, the seduction of being the one to save the Knicks is pretty strong, though. Can you imagine if out of all, I mean, they haven't won since what, 73?
Exactly.
Walt Frazier, right? Like, if he walks in that gym and brings them a title, like he's basketball deity now. Like he's in that conversation. He's up there. You're putting them on the same mantle with, you know, Michael Jordan and like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like just where you talk about like, whoa, you can't have the conversation about NBA history without being to say, remember when Kevin Durant delivered the Knicks to a title and broke the drought just the same way? You can't have the conversation about the NBA without saying LeBron brought a title to Cleveland after 50-plus years. So
exactly. And plus with the Knicks,
be pretty seductive.
Yeah, they might be able to keep their unicorn as well. So you have two unicorns and an Uncle Drew, possibly.
Right? So, I mean, they lost the lottery, but I don't think they lost. I mean, Zion would have been great, but they're going to – what if they end up with Anthony Davis and Kyrie and KD? Right? Man, that's not bad at all. That's a proposition that might make you walk away from the Warriors. I could see that.
Yep, I know what you mean. So before we let you go, where on social media and the web should they check you out at?
So we're at all social media. I'm at Thompson Scribe, ThompsonScribe. You can follow me at The Athletic. We are a burgeoning and excellent sports website. You got to pay. It's a subscription, but I promise you it's worth it. And you can buy the book wherever books are sold. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, your local bookstore. And if you happen to be in Oakland, I got a few in my trunk, but they're $59.99.
Definitely. That is awesome. And yeah, The Athletic, I agree with you, is amazing. We've had so many of the other writers at our network. They work with them or write for them, and it's just a great service. I mean, if you're truly into sports, that is the place to be. But yeah, thank you, Marcus, for being on the show today, and we look forward to your new books in the future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you for having me.